That's just what this week's UU of the Week did. Linus Pauling was born in February 28, 1901 in Portland, Oregon. He was a great student and had an adventurous spirit. Unfortunately, Linus's father died when he was only 9. Feeling the weight of this responsibility, at age 12, he started working to help support his family. Linus always loved science. As a child, he could be found collecting rocks and bugs. As an adult, he continued to collect rocks and bugs, and in college, used them as samples. He was an excellent public speaker, but was also very shy. Studying at Oregon State, he was considered a genius, and as a student was allowed to teach a class on analytical chemistry. During this time, while teaching a class on the chemistry of cooking, he met the love of his life, Ava Miller. Linus graduated in 1922 as the salutatorian of his class. From there, he went on to study at Caltech, where they were actually paying him to take classes there. Linus's field of study was a brand new science, analyzing the spacing and orientation of atoms in crystalline materials. He completed his doctorate in 1925 and then went to study in Europe. Science was changing, in part due to our friend Linus. A new model of math, quantum mechanics, was developed, which led Linus to create a formula to explain how atoms were compounded together. Linus was the very first person to make a quantum theory and use it in his scientific work. He created terms such as hydrogen bonding, resonance, and hybrid bonding. In this timeline, Linus had published a series of research papers that were lauded as revolutionary. Linus had turned his attention back to his first goal of interpreting X-ray diffraction data. He became an assistant professor at Caltech and continued doing research. He published several books and papers, which garnered him a lot of wealth and prestige. The world was at the edge of World War II, and science followed. During the war, Linus worked on explosives and oxygen concentration for submarines. He also helped create synthetic blood plasma to help wounded soldiers in battle. This research led to him receiving the Medal of Merit from President Harry Truman. Lest you think otherwise, his wife Ava was no simple housewife. She had worked to create a synthetic rubber program and was an emergency air raid warden and fire controller during the war. Ava was also committed to social justice and worked with the ACLU to fight the internment of Japanese Americans. Towards the end of World War II, she decided to hire a Japanese American gardener for help in her yard. Unfortunately, people in the neighborhood were not happy and defaced their house with racist messages, and they started to receive horrendous phone calls from people filled with hate and upset with their decision to hire a Japanese American gardener. The advent of the atomic bomb led Linus to become a pacifist, and he joined other prominent scientists, such as Albert Einstein, in protesting the testing of nuclear weapons and the hydrogen bomb. He would travel thousands of miles to give speeches and circulate petitions against testing. The FBI started to gather data on his working in pacifism in the anti-war movement, and at one point actually refused to grant him a passport so he could attend a scientific conference in England. They were worried that he would use the conference as a moment to promote his peace agenda. He totally would have. It was during this time that Linus and Ava found the Unitarian Church in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, the Unitarians were gathering to protest war and the atomic weapons. Linus had begun to give speeches and attended the church regularly with his wife. He said, quote, "I joined the Los Angeles Unitarian Church because it accepts as members people who are trying to make the world a better place," end quote. Despite their best effort to thwart his activism, he still gathered a lot of respect for the scientific world. So much so that Linus won the Nobel Prize in 1954 for his work on the chemical bond structures of molecules. The platform of the Nobel Prize then allowed Linus to continue to speak out against public issues such as segregation and the coming of the Vietnam War. His work for justice led him to being ostracized at Caltech. He chose to resign instead of working with those he believed on the wrong side of justice. In 1958, Linus wrote the book No More War to advocate for a peaceful world. He felt it was his life's calling to speak out on injustice. This work garnered him a second Nobel Prize, this time the Nobel Peace Prize in 1963. Linus continued to work in science at the Center for Studies of Democratic Institutions and the University of California, San Diego, and Stanford University. In 1973, he decided to create his own institute called the Linus Pauling Institute of Science and Medicine. The institute's focus was on orthomolecular medicine. Linus continued to speak for peace, which didn't help him get many friends. This was also in part due to his critical nature and self-righteous attitude. His wife, Ava, died of stomach cancer in 1981, and Linus, without a lot of friends, became even more secluded. Linus continued to write about nuclear structure and even the human diet. In 1986, he wrote his last book, How to Live Longer and Feel Better. Linus died in 1994 at the ripe old age of 93. His work and passion led him to become an advocate for a better world. Thank you for joining us for another UU of the Week. To find out more information, please visit us at uuoftheweek.org.